My name is Amanda Sawires Yager, and I'm pleased to be hosting tonight's show, a special production of Dead Air Live called Working Women with Disabilities, Working It Out Together. The way that this show came about is, besides being a Somerville Producers Group member, doing weekly cable access television, during the daytime I work at the Institute for Community Inclusion, which is a Boston-based center on promoting employment. The Institute got an exciting 3-year grant from the National Institute on Disability Research Rehabilitation to look at the experiences of working women with disabilities. So tonight I have with me 3 guests who are working women and who will be talking about their experiences in gaining employment, maintaining employment, and advancing in employment. And partway through the show, we'll be looking at a tape that will talk to us more about the Working It Out Together project. Welcome. Very nice to have you all here with us tonight. Let me quickly introduce our 3 guests. To my left, we have Mairead Rueters. Mairead is a software quality assurance engineer. Welcome, Mairead.
Thank you.
Next to her, we have Angela Perri, and Angela is currently an office assistant. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
And to my right is Andrea Berkman, and Andrea is a teacher. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
To start out, I wanted to talk to you all a little bit about what it is that you do, what your responsibilities are, and how did you get to where you are today in terms of work. So whoever wants to start. Mairead?
Sure. Okay, as you said, I am a software QA engineer. Do you want me to explain that a little bit? Or?
Yeah, it would be great
Okay.
if you talked a little bit about what you do in your job.
Sure. I work in a software company right now, and it's basically my job to find bugs in the software, and then these bugs are sent to the developers and they fix them, and then I have to test that they really got fixed. That's basically my job. There are a lot of other aspects to it, but I don't want to go too much into detail about this.
Did you did you use any special strategies to get your job, or how did you get this job that you're in right now?
Well, that's kind of a long story. I grew up in Germany, and I went to school there, and my first job was, I actually started out as a teacher. I taught math in high school, and then when I came to the United States, when my husband and I got married, I was looking for something a little different, and computers was always something that I was interested in. So I took some courses at BU, and then at the same time I applied for a job. And after a while I found a job in a company in Cambridge. And I stayed there for a long time, and then moved to a different one, and this is now my 3rd software company.
I bet you're in demand.
Right now it's not difficult to find work.
Great. Well, we'll come back to some of your on-the-job experiences in a little bit. What about you, Angela? How did you get your job?
Through a temporary employment agency, through Mass General. I work for 20 doctors altogether.
You do?
Yeah, but it's split up. How I got the job was volunteering, and that's about it. I volunteered, and I was hired through a temp agency, and I worked with the current employment for 2 weeks. My office manager liked me, and then in December of 92, I'm sorry, I got the job, and I've been there ever since.
You told me when we were talking earlier that you had actually moved up to this area
Right.
in order to find employment.
Right.
And that, in fact, several companies were competing for your services.
Yeah. Yeah, I was working, I was temping at Mass General, and I was temping at a nursing home at the time. And for the life of me, I can't remember the nursing home's name, I'm sorry.
Oh, not at all.
And then what ended up happening was Mass General went out. So they have me.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll come back to a little bit more of what you do on a daily basis in a bit.
Okay.
Andrea, what do you do?
Well, I'm a teacher with an after-school program in Boston, and actually Angela and I have something in common. I also got my job because I used to volunteer there. I started volunteering there when I was in college. It was a way to do my student teaching. And I left, when I finished my student teaching, I left and I went on to graduate school and on to a few other things. And then when I started looking for a teaching position, I just happened to notice that they were advertising for someone, and that the teacher that I did my practice teaching with was now the director of the center where I work. So she remembered me, and she gave me an interview and was interested in hiring me.
So that was a personal contact,
Yeah.
in part.
Partially, I think it had been about 10 years since I'd volunteered there, so I'm surprised anyone remembered me at all, but I think it gave me at least enough of an in to get an interview.
Okay. And you also, Angela, said that you got your start through a personal contact. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was volunteering at Mass General, and they liked me, and they hired me for a month. And then after that assignment was finished, then I moved on to the other assignments with the Bullfinch Medical Group, who I'm working with now. And I only worked there for 2 weeks, 3 days, and they liked me. And then as I was temping, I happened to notice the office manager one day in December, and she says, "Come see me." And that's how I got my job.
Great. Do you find, I think one of the interesting topics in talking to working women who have any kind of disability is what it takes to work on a daily basis. Are there any supports that you all need? And if so, is it a challenge to get those, that you need or that you receive? Or what are your thoughts about supports on the job? And you can all go in any order. I know that I myself have a lot of feelings about this because in my past few jobs I have needed certain supports in order to work, and I've gotten much better at advocating for those things over time, but I know that initially it wasn't an easy thing. So what do you all think?
I know for me, I need a lot of support because I have a lot of physical issues. There are certain things that I can't do. Right now I work with small children, and there are certain parks that I can't go to. So one of the things that I need is for them to rearrange the staff so that the kids that I work with don't have to spend their entire day in one place, and they need to help me move them around. And I guess that's the biggest thing I need is some of the help with the physical logistics of a job, because I know one of the reasons I changed jobs was because that became an issue at my last job, because I needed help with the elevator there because it was one of those really old elevators that has a cage in it, and I couldn't open and close the door by myself, and it drove everyone, including me, crazy because 20 times a day, "Can I have some help with the elevator, please?" And that was one of the big decision-making factors in changing jobs was I was really tired of saying that. So I think the biggest factor is probably having an environment where people understand what it is you need, even if it's a small kind of help, and people who are willing to provide it. And what I notice is the longer I spend in one place, the more comfortable they get providing those things. My last job I had for 2 years, and the first year it was really like pulling teeth to get help with the elevator, and the second year they said, you know, we're just going to rearrange your job so you don't have to go upstairs.
That's great.
You know, and it took 9 months for them to figure it out, but once they figured it out, it became a lot easier.
Did you find that you needed to tell them? Did you tell them, or was it something that was arrived at mutually?
I think I made the first move. I remember saying to them something because they asked me if I wanted to come back for a second year, and I said, not unless we do something about the way this is working. I said I like it here. I like the people here. I said, but I can't be here every day unless we do something. And then we sat down and we had a discussion about exactly how we were going to change it.
That sounds very proactive.
Yeah, and then I left there because the position that I had, the funding ran out for it. So I left there because the position ran out. And then my new job has been, they've really been quite nice about arranging things for me. But I was very careful to pick something that I knew some of the issues would be there.
Okay. What about you two?
I need some special equipment to work with the computers. For instance, to read what's on the screen. First of all, I'm visually impaired. I use special glasses, but I also use speech output, so I can basically listen to what's on the screen. And this is a special kind of software that I have to buy, or my company buys, and then I'm using it, as I said, to listen to what's on the screen, to listen to like my email, things on the web, you know, that kind of thing. That's one thing. The other thing is, I sometimes need support when, for instance, when we have meetings and somebody is writing or drawing on the blackboard, whiteboard. Then I would sometimes ask, can you please explain what you just wrote, because I can't follow this, and so they may have to repeat it, but that's usually it. Or sometimes if I have to go to somebody else's computer that doesn't have this special equipment, I would also ask to explain what's on the screen, or to go over it again. You know.
Like during a meeting or something, you might all be standing around a computer.
Right, or if I have to go into somebody else's office to explain something, then, you know, if we're not doing things directly at my computer, then it might be a little more difficult.
Because in debugging, do you work with the end users much? Or is it more?
Yeah,
do you have a lot of interface with people? You know, does that come up a lot?
Usually with the developers and other QA members. But I just have to, for instance, if something isn't working on my machine, sometimes it's interesting to see, is this a special operating system, or is it possible that this is not working on another person's machine? So I go into that office and say, could we please try this? And so that is some sort of interaction that happens on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. Angela, you said you work with 20 doctors. That must be something.
At least.
Do you come across supports that you need or have needed?
I came up with some of the supports that I have. When I first started my job, somebody came in and helped me organize my day, because to keep track of everything, it's crazy. From 2 office assistants when I first started, we have 4, and there's like 2 office assistants in one location, and there's 2 office assistants where I am, including myself. And it's crazy. I mean, we pull charts, we put the charts away, the secretaries add people on for us. We have to pull the charts and put the charts away, do the filing, do the faxing. It's enormous.
A lot of, basically, you do all of the support for these doctors. You're
Right.
part of the team that does that.
Right.
So I know that I often, when I have a lot of different tasks, wish that I had some kind of handbook or was clearer about, well, what's the most important thing or what should come first. So is that the type of organizational support that you were talking about?
Exactly. Like the first thing in the morning, we pull 2 days ahead of time. Like today is Tuesday, we pulled for Thursday. And then that's right away, right off the bat. And then we do the mail.
But that's something that right now, you pretty much, you've been there for 9 or 10 years, a while,
years.
you said 8 years.
8 years.
And so you know what the routine.
Routine, right.
Thank you, I couldn't remember that word. You know what the routine is, but originally you established that routine with a little bit of assistance.
Exactly. Somebody came in with me, my friend Consuelo Condolfo. She had her own agency at the time who helped people with disabilities. She came in and she helped me set my priorities. And in fact, she helped me establish them. And that's what I use when I train the new members of the office staff. Step 1, step 2, step 3. That's how we do it.
What's really interesting as you say that is it just comes to mind that lots of times accommodations or assistance that we might get from other people is helpful to anyone who might be doing the job. I mean, different people, Maria, you're talking about, you have special software, so not everybody's going to need that special software. However, I know that I've been in plenty of trainings, I conduct trainings where not everybody can see the screen, or they may not be able to read the whiteboard they might have a learning disability or a visual impairment, and so it just makes sense to make it a matter of course to talk about what you're putting up, or make it big enough, or make sure that people don't have other needs. So I think that that's very interesting that you sort of created a handbook that now people use. We have a tape with us that features several staff people from the Institute for Community Inclusion, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about the project, Working It Out Together, that I mentioned earlier, that looks at the very issues that we're talking about in the career advancement of women with disabilities. So if that tape is ready, we'll roll it now.
I'm Susan Foley, and I'm the director of the project.
I'm Jen Schuster, a research data coordinator at the Institute for Community Inclusion.
My name is Mairead Moloney, and I'm a research data coordinator at the Institute for Community Inclusion.
Mi nombre es Myra Rosen Reynoso.
Jen Bose, I'm a research data coordinator at the Institute for Community Inclusion. About a year ago, the National Institute on Disability Rehabilitation and Research, also known as NIDR, put out an announcement for researchers to study the employment opportunities of women with disabilities. And we were very interested in this announcement in that we do a lot of employment research. One of the facts about women with disabilities is that there is estimated to be about 26 million in the United States. Of working women with a disability, there are estimated to be about 9 million. So really there's about 1 in 3 women have a disability and are working. We are based at the Institute for Community Inclusion at Children's Hospital in Boston, and we were awarded the grant in November of 1999, so we're really very much in the first stages of our project. We are a team of researchers and trainers, and we are looking at how to develop this project that will help women learn from each other. Our title of it is called Working It Out Together, Women with Disabilities and Employment. And that says a lot about our mission in that we are looking at how women help each other and learn from each other. As I said, we're based at the Institute for Community Inclusion, and we also have a group of consultants who are working with us, including Dr. Bonnie O'Day, who is formerly a researcher at National Rehab Hospital, is now working in Virginia at Cherry Engineering Services, and was formerly the director of the Boston Center for Independent Living. About half of the women on the project are actually working women with disabilities. Another important facet of the project is that we're looking at the employment experiences of Latina with disabilities. And there is very little research looking at employment issues for women with disabilities in general, and even less for Latina. And there is some suggestion that there is a higher rate of disability among Latina and that they get less job supports at work. So it's a very important area to look into. When people think of a person with a disability, they often think of somebody who uses a wheelchair or who is blind or visually impaired. We're using a much more broad definition. We think of someone who has a disability, maybe somebody who has a condition that affects their ability to work, or who has a condition that might affect their ability to walk, talk, see, hear, think, read. These would all be considered disabilities. People with disabilities would include women who have lupus or multiple sclerosis, breast cancer, HIV positive status. They would also include people who have depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Women with learning disabilities or brain injuries would also be considered women with disabilities. So we're very much thinking of disability in a very broad context. Our project is really focusing on the positive experiences of women with disabilities. And there are many women who are working in all kinds of occupations, including as lawyers, as doctors, chemists, secretaries, school teachers, military personnel, bankers, waitresses. We're hoping to learn from women who are currently working to find out how they've managed their career, what sort of supports they've used, such as peers and mentors, and how they have really developed in their own career. And we're hoping that this information will help other women with disabilities just starting out, or women who are wanting to move up and haven't yet been able to find out a way to do that.
For the first part of the Working It Out Together project, we conducted a series of focus groups for working women with disabilities who were in various stages of their careers. In these focus groups, the women discussed a variety of workplace issues, such as barriers that they had encountered and supports that they used throughout the career process. One of the things that we found was that many of these women had said that having social supports, such as peers, co-workers, or a more experienced mentor, had helped them to succeed in their jobs. So using this and other information that we gathered from these focus groups, we are now developing a survey which will be administered nationwide, asking women to tell us about their concerns in the workplace, the supports they have used to help them, and the ways that peers and mentors may have helped them to get ahead in their jobs. Also, we are conducting a local intervention which will look at the ways that peer support, mentoring relationships, and social networks could help people to maintain their jobs and to move ahead in their careers. We're now looking for women in the Eastern Massachusetts area to help us by participating in this very important aspect of the project.
I'd like to talk a little bit about what we'll be doing in our local intervention. We'll be recruiting a total of 60 working women with disabilities from the Boston area, and we'll be using 3 different strategies to help them improve their career outcomes. Some women will be paired with mentors, and we know that every woman is an individual and might have different wants or desires for their mentor. So some women might choose a mentor who's further along in their career, or maybe just someone with more work experience. Other women might want a mentor who has the same or a similar disability and can therefore understand some of their daily struggles, both inside and out of the workplace. Other women are going to be participating in peer groups. Now, these are going to be pairs of women who are in similar places in their lives, and we're hoping that they're going to work together as a team to offer each other support and encouragement. And finally, some women will be receiving trainings. These trainings will teach women how to use their social support networks in ways that they just might not have thought of. We'll be teaching women how to utilize family and friends, or even build new networks to support them in their careers, to help maintain their job, advance, or even find a new or better job. Every woman who participates will receive ongoing support from our project staff. We'll be giving free seminars, and there'll be free technical assistance and a small stipend to help defray costs of networking or career development. If you're interested in this project and would like to learn more about it, please give us a call here. Our number is 617-355-4099, and our TDD number is 617-355-6956.
Nosotras estamos interesadas en saber más acerca de las experiencias de mujeres latinas con deshabilidades. Para nuestro proyecto, la definición de deshabilidad es bastante general. Por ejemplo, puede incluir a mujeres con SIDA o mujeres con depresión, esquizofrenia, múltiple esclerosis o parálisis cerebral. Vamos a entrevistar a las mujeres y tratar de entender qué han sido las experiencias de ellas acerca del empleo, pero también vamos a ofrecer una variedad de intervenciones y talleres para ayudarlas. Hasta ahora, las mujeres latinas que han participado en nuestro proyecto han dicho que ha sido una experiencia muy positiva para ellas. Entonces, si usted es una mujer con una deshabilidad, o si conoce a una mujer con una deshabilidad y está interesada en este proyecto, por favor llámenme al 617-355-7027. Gracias.
I want to recap a little about what everyone's been saying about this really interesting project, working it out together. The National Institute on Disability Rehabilitation Research has granted us this 3-year opportunity to really look at the situation of the many working women with disabilities and study an area that really hasn't gotten much attention but is just beginning to get much more: women with disabilities and employment. We've already started this year by hosting some focus groups where we've been asking women at different levels in their careers what they think is important to their success in the workplace, what they think is important to maintaining employment, to their success in advancement in their careers, or maybe to career change. One of the big issues people brought up that was critical to their success at work was job supports. People being able to connect, either working with other people as mentors who might be more experienced or who might have worked longer and could understand their issues. People working together as peers who could help one another improve their job skills and understand how to handle different situations. And people being able to network and use that as a job strategy for advancement. Next, we're going to be doing a national survey, which we're going to be sending flyers and announcements out about. This will be something very interesting to look forward to. We'll explain how to participate and give you more information on what that will be like. In January of 2001, coming up very soon, we're going to be starting our project right here in the Boston area. That's going to be a series of trainings that will really be made up of these different things we've been talking about. If you're a working woman with a disability, You probably may realize that working women with disabilities have a lot more potential than some people think they might. If you're 21 years of age and you've been working for 6 months at least, and you're interested in our ideas and interested in improving your job skills, in connecting with other women, and in career advancement or change, please get in touch with us about this project. It's very interesting. We look forward to being able to give you the information and for you being able to think about whether this is a good opportunity for you. The phone numbers are 617-355-4099. And for our TDD users, that's 617-355-6956. Please call and help us get started working this out together.
Welcome back to the studio. I'm Amanda Sawires Yager, and tonight's program of Dead Air Live is Working Women with Disabilities, Working It Out Together. I have with me 3 guests tonight who are working women with disabilities. And during the break, we were all chatting about, the good stuff always happens during the break. We were chatting about that the whole concept of women with disabilities, or in fact any person with a disability working, is sort of surprising to some people. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I'm dyslexic, okay? And today I went to one of my coworkers and I said, what do you think a dyslexic person sees? They said, you see the words backwards. That's a myth. I don't know where they got that myth, but it is. I see the words just like everybody else does. I just might not know how to break down the words. But that doesn't mean that I am dumb or I am stupid. I just have a little bit longer time to learn. But once I get it, I got it. And one thing about my work is that they gave me the opportunity to prove myself. And once you get the employers to give you a chance, you have it made. But you have to really work hard to get them to let you do it.
Okay. How about you two?
Well, the story that everybody was kind of laughing at that I was telling during the break is that I went to an appeals committee with my health insurance company to get them to pay for physical therapy, which is something I need to help me get up in the morning and move around and keep from getting completely stiff. And they said, oh, well, can't you just take medication for it? You know, can you take Valium or something else? And I said, well, I could, but I don't like to go to work and be, you know, zoned out on Valium or whatever the drug of choice is. And they sort of looked at me and didn't really, you could sort of tell from the looks on their faces that they couldn't figure out what I did for work that was so important that it would make any difference if I took something or not. And so they said, what do you do for your job? And I said, well, I'm a special education teacher. And there were these blank, sort of dead stares from the entire room that sort of said, oh, I think we made a mistake. You know, and they sort of went on to something else because they were embarrassed that they had assumed that I would have basically an unimportant type of job. And that was kind of an interesting reaction. The other way that I get that same reaction is I tell people that I'm a teacher and they say, oh, you must work with high school students or you must work with college students. I say, no, I work with, you know, 5 and 6-year-olds. And they just, how can you handle that? Don't they run away from you? And yeah, once in a while they run away from me, but most of the time they do what I tell them and we get along just fine. But for some reason, because I'm in a wheelchair, I'm supposed to have a sedentary job and I'm supposed to have a job that's maybe not so important. So I guess one of the things that the message that needs to get out there is I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And if that's not sedentary and that doesn't fit the picture, well, that's too bad. I like being a teacher and I'm having a good time.
It's almost like people don't understand that, or they're not creative. They don't know how can you do the job. So that must be one of the issues. Do you find that that's true, Maria, that people may not understand how you would do the job?
Not so much at work, not so much at my job, but sometimes I come across people who are just amazed. Oh, wow, you visually impaired or blind people can actually use a computer. It's very surprising to them. I find that sometimes, and as I said, not so much where I work right now or where I used to work, but yeah, when I meet people, how can you use a computer? How can you actually do work? That happens, yes.
Do you think that that's in part, that it's not an issue at work, in part because you're in a technology and people understand that there's so many assistive devices that one can use? Or, I mean, I'm sure it's because you're valuable and you've proven yourself in part, or, to what do you attribute that?
To what do I attribute?
To what do you attribute, sort of the discrepancy that in everyday circumstances, people wonder at how you could do things?
Yeah, because I have a lot of work experience by now, and it was certainly more difficult when I started. Then I didn't know what I could do, and other people, didn't know. But now it's more. I think the more I know what I can do, the less of a problem it is to me.
That's very interesting. And how did you discover, and this would be a question for everybody, but I wanted to start with Maria, how did you sort of discover what you could do? You said when you started you weren't sure. How did you sort of develop in that thinking?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I never had, I was always brought up to think that I would find work. There was never a time when I was actually thinking, oh my goodness, I might not find a job at all or something. I knew that it might be difficult, but so I basically, as I said, I was interested in computers, so I got books, I read, I tried out things, and so I got into that, and I didn't think it was particularly difficult, except for one time when, I don't know if I should go into this detail, but when graphical user interfaces came up, Windows, for instance, that was a big challenge for me, in general, for blind people. But we have much better access to those graphical user interfaces now. So.
Okay. So how do you, I guess one question is, how did you learn what your capacities were and sort of negotiate that when you started with an employer? Because, okay, so Angela and Andrea said that sometimes people are surprised that you can work, or actually, Maria, you said that too. How do you tell an employer, how do you show an employer that you can do that? Has that been challenging when you start working?
Sometimes. I would say it was more in the beginning than now. It is less and less an issue, but in the beginning I was kind of nervous when I went to job interviews, because I had to convince myself and had to convince others. But at this point, it is, as I said, less an issue now because I have many years of experience now, so people look at my resume, look at my record, ask me questions, and I can answer them like everybody else. So, and they're less concerned with the special ways that I have to use in order to read the computer screen, or in order to maybe get some information out of people when they write on the whiteboard.
It's just tools and equipment.
Right, it is.
Right.
But I see these issues much more as a problem at the beginning of somebody's career.
Okay. What were you saying, Angie?
Sometimes it is because with dyslexia, it's like, okay, it's hard for an employer to understand. I was just lucky that my employer just gave me the chance, but it's like you have to prove yourself, number one, in any job, and then with a disability, you have to work harder and prove not only to yourself but and to the employer that you can do the job. And that's where you need to have strategies. It's like, okay, maybe what I did was I timed myself, and I work from 8 to 4:30. And so from what I do is I give myself time segments. That's how I learned how to do my job.
Time segments for certain
For
tasks.
certain tasks.
Okay. And when you started out, did the employer know that you had dyslexia? I mean,
No.
Okay.
No, because I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell them that.
So the employer just knew that you had somebody that came in with you initially to help you plan it out.
Right.
Okay.
And then when I felt comfortable enough, I told them. And now it's just great.
Did that change the dynamic at all when you told them?
No, everybody looked like you're doing what now? You're filing all these papers. And it's crazy.
Okay. Andrea, what do you think?
About, can you just restate the question?
You
a
know
little
what?
bit?
I have to tell you, I can't remember what the question was.
I mean,
That's why I just said, what do you think? I think we were talking about when you first start out at a job, right? Anybody can jump in and help me here. When you first start out, how did you
convince people
Convince people.
that you can do the work that is required?
exactly?
I think most of the most successful jobs that I've ever had, the ones that I've really enjoyed, actually have been the ones where I've known somebody before I started. And I think that's given me sort of a big helping hand, is that there's been someone who's known, okay, she's capable, I've seen her do, maybe not this exact thing before, but I've seen her do something similar, so I'm pretty sure she can do this. And some of it's been just kind of talking to people and saying, okay, I'm having trouble doing this. Can we sit down together and figure out a way I can do this? And that's really funny, because this is what Angela made me think of when she was talking. Is my mother always told me when I was little, don't tell anybody how you do things. They don't want to know that. You just need to come off being, as quote unquote normal as you can. Just you worry about how you get things done, but don't bring it up with them. And I used to be pretty careful about that. I used to not tell people that I took the ride and not tell people that I needed help to get up in the morning and things like that, because I figured they didn't need to know. But the interesting thing was, when I started telling people that I took the ride and I needed them to give me more time to do things, I started having less problems at work, because people started helping. And my previous job that I left, one of the reasons I left it is because I made practically nothing, because I spent all the money that I made on transportation to get there and things like that. And I was sitting with my former supervisor one day, and she asked me straight out, how do you get to work in the morning? And I sat there for about 10 seconds and said, okay, I wasn't going to tell her this, but she asked for it, so I'll tell her. And I told her, and about 2 weeks later, she started referring private tutoring students to me after school because she felt bad that I was spending everything I was making to get there. And she found a way for me to do something that I was very good at, which was working with individual students, and for her to help me not have to spend quite so much to get there. So I found out that as soon as I started talking to people about what I needed, my life got easier.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of the things that you talked about, networking and personal connections, are some of the things that we'll be looking at specifically in the Working It Out Together project. I want to keep talking, and I guess what I'd like is, a phrase from each of you, a brief phrase about if you have any specific advice for working women with disabilities, and then after that we'll go to a tape. Do you want to start, Angie?
Sure. Work as hard as you can and be proud that you got the opportunity to do the job. And if you tell them, you tell them. If you don't, you don't.
It's a personal choice.
It's a personal choice.
Okay. Maria, do you have any words of wisdom?
Well, I would say get together with other people who are in a similar situation, and perhaps find a group, and so you can talk about these issues, and that sometimes helps a lot. If there are problems, you can give each other support and advice, and yeah, that's what I would like to say.
Great, great. How about you?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to take a look at what you're good at and what your strengths are, and try to find a job that really works off of what those strengths are and what you're really good at. Because if you're good at your job, your disability is not going to matter as much, and you're going to enjoy it a lot more.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. We're going to come back in a moment, but right now we're going to take a look at Bill Kiernan, who is the director of the Institute for Community Inclusion, and learn a little bit about that organization.
Well, we're pleased to have had an opportunity to share with you one of the many research projects and programs of the Institute for Community Inclusion. We're very excited about this as a new initiative. Clearly, it takes us into an arena where further investigation as to the strategies of supporting women with disabilities in the labor market is essential. There are a number of other activities, though, I'd like to share with you and give you a little bit of a sense of the range of activities that are going on at the Institute. First, the Institute is a program that's run jointly by the Children's Hospital and the University of Massachusetts at Boston. Our main focus is looking at strategies and identifying ways to include or have people with disabilities be included in all major life activities, in educational settings, in recreational settings, in work, and in community living. Our focus is really on figuring out ways that persons with disabilities can assume and participate in all of the major life activities. Several of the grants and the projects at the university and at the hospital focus on the issues of employment. And employment for women with disabilities, as you've just heard, is one of our areas of interest. Other projects include issues of persons with HIV in the workplace and how they are supported. We also examine strategies that are used at different state levels to enhance the ability of persons with disabilities to benefit from public vocational rehabilitation services, state mental retardation and developmental disability services, and the one-stop career centers that are springing up throughout the country. Our excitement about this, given the changing workforce and the demands for workers, are that we see new opportunities for people with disabilities to really join in and become part of the work fabric more so now than we've ever seen in the past. Our excitement is also supported by our research findings that show that in fact persons with disabilities are succeeding in the workplace through strategies such as natural supports, assistance from coworkers, and modifications within the workplace using new technologies. All of this leads to a new way of life for us, people without disabilities, as we perceive people with disabilities as having skills, and for persons with disabilities who perceive themselves as producers and members of the workforce, making their contribution to society as all others have.
Okay, well that was Bill Kiernan from the Institute for Community Inclusion, and that is the sponsoring organization of the project Working It Out Together. We're going to be wrapping up in a moment here, and the last thing I wanted to talk to tonight's guests about was what are your next steps for career advancement, and how do you think you're going to pursue that? Just real briefly. Do you want to start?
Sure. I'm getting my doctorate in special education from Boston University, and the next thing that I want to do once I finish my dissertation is I'd like to go into curriculum development and textbook publishing, because the part of my job I really like is planning the lessons and getting organized, and that's what I'm really good at, so I'm hoping to make a real career out of it eventually.
And you're going to do that while you're working?
Yeah, I will at least continue working. I think for the next couple of years, the kids that I work with now will make a really good research group for my project, so
Great.
It's nice. I'll know them and they'll know me, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Good luck with that.
Thanks.
How about you, Angie?
I'm going to go back to school. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but I just want to get my hand back into education, whether it's going to a cooking class or a VOTEC class. I'm really not so sure, but I need to talk to somebody about that.
What, pursuing education?
Right.
All right. And how about you, Maria?
I just started a new job in April, and I'm still learning a lot there, and I'll probably get more into automating tests, so learning tools to do that, and then writing test automation, probably.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to deepen your knowledge and explore another area. Great. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. For people who are more interested in the project, it's Working It Out Together. It's a 3-year project that is funded by the National Institute on Disability Rehabilitation Research, and the Institute for Community Inclusion is currently in phase 1 of the project. We recently conducted some focus groups with women with disabilities to talk to them about their career advancement strategies. Right now we're in the development of a survey that will be distributed nationally, where we will get a wide sample of working women with disabilities and find out what their career experiences have been. And coming up in January, we want you, working women with disabilities in the greater Boston area, to join us. Please call us. Our project will be in the intervention phase in January 2001, and we will be conducting a series of trainings on career advancement strategies. We will eventually end up with 3 groups of women, all of whom will receive trainings, and one group will be matched with peer supporters, and the other will be matched with mentors, and together they'll work it out and take the next steps for their career advancement. For more information about the project, you can contact us at any of the following numbers that should be coming up on the screen. For people who use the telephone, 617-355-4099. TDD users can call us at 355-6956. And for Spanish-speaking persons, you can call us at 355-7027. For more information about the project or the Institute for Community Inclusion, you can look us up on our website, www.childrenshospital.org/ICI. This is Amanda Sawires Yager for the Somerville Producers Group and the Institute for Community Inclusion, wishing you a good night.